We're talking Super 8s, and I'm delighted to say we've got the Down manager, Paddy Tally, with us. Paddy, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning, guys.
I guess you're very well placed to talk about some of the games coming up this weekend in particular. We were chatting there with Kieran Donaghy about the Mayo Armagh game in particular, and just how quickly Armagh are improving as the season progresses. With every game, they've got better and better, and they even managed to take defeat in their stride relatively straightforward. And for a young team, a trip through the qualifiers can be a very important way of playing regular matches and bonding. So where are they in their evolution at the moment, do you think, Paddy?
Yeah, I think Armagh have been doing really well this last couple of years. They've been building a team, and I think two key changes this year have happened for Armagh. It's the introduction of Liam Reid and Charlotte O'Burns. And I think the two lads have given a freshness to the team and I suppose an attacking edge that maybe we're missing out on. So I think they're in a really good position now going into this match. They bounced back very well from the Championship defeat, and I'd expect them to be confident going into the Mayo match. I would see themselves as having a genuine opportunity.
I remember talking to McGeaney when he was the Kildare manager about his philosophy and what he wanted the team to be, and he talked about wave motion and Olympic handball as opposed to being a defensive side. And if you think about now how teams are playing, the whole notion of a team being a defensive team or an attacking team is kind of nonsensical. Like, no one really thinks that a team is just one type or the other. And if I was to think back to that Kildare team, they kind of were a prototype for what a good team today should be. Very strong defensively, but able to break forward in numbers very quickly, and when it was required of them, able to hit early ball. It seems like that was a good prototype for where football is today, and it seems that Armagh are just a new iteration of that, except with much better inside forwards than that Kildare team had.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a fair assumption. I think Kieran built a team in the Kildare too that time that were physically very strong as well. A big team that you can go direct to midfield and then you can go direct again. Cuts out a lot of misplaced passes and maybe opportunities for errors. So this Armagh team, I think at the moment they'll have a good balance. They have a balance of having a bit of physical strength, but they also have a lot of good players on the ball, and they break very fast in defence, which we found out when we played them in the Championship game, and I think they're getting better as things go on. So I think they've established themselves now as one of the better teams in Ulster, but it's taken a wee bit of time. But to go back to what I said, I think the introduction of a few new players this year has made a big difference. So I think the prototype that Kieran's been working on, if you want to call that, there has definitely now starting to show rewards.
What would your plan have been against Armagh, and what would your plan have been against Mayo, and how different were those two sides to come up against?
Well, the Armagh game was a bit of a derby game, and the Down and Armagh players knew each other pretty well. That was a really good game of football. Both teams went at it hard, and I think it was a game that sort of hung on a few big incidents in the match. I think Down going to 14 and really affected the game. I think losing Keelan, because he's one of those players that can give you a great pace going forward. But even in extra time, I thought Armagh kicked on strong. We were in a good position at half time, but we couldn't actually close the game out. And I think that just that wee bit of know-how they had maybe come against us. The Mayo game was completely different for us, because we sort of got into that game. We knew that they were up a very experienced Mayo team who were probably going to set up slightly different to Armagh, a bit more defensive, which is strange for Mayo, but probably their thoughts were just get out of nearly the result, and they did. But in both cases, the physical aspect was something we were very aware of, that both teams possessed very big players, strong players around the middle. If you take the Mayo midfield, with Jim O'Connor and Aidan O'Shea last week, and if you take the Armagh midfield with Charlie O'Burns and lads like that around the middle, at Charlie Vernon and Mel Grimley, and that, we sort of knew that both teams possessed physical players. So you have to sort of work your way around it and try and run the ball as much as possible and try and avoid the ball going to the middle of the field and kick-outs. But I think they're well matched. They're going up each other in terms of having the same type of players, but they've also got a lot of good running players too, so it'll be a really interesting game.
You would have been at the coalface last year when Galway took Mayo out of the Connacht Championship. Coming up against them this year, 12 months on, how have they developed?
The Mayo team, I think funny enough, I think they're not as strong as they were last year. I think Mayo last year, I felt that they were they probably, had more options last year the way they were playing, and I think Galway really did really well to come out of Castlebar with that result that day. Mayo at the moment, I think, to be honest with you, the couple of losses I had, I think Matthew Horan's a big loss in the middle of the field, who's shown great promise to the league. I just read this morning where James O'Connor has broken his wrist. I think too that's a big blow at this moment of time. And the facts are that Mayo aren't getting any younger. A lot of the players there now they're just still calling upon for that game against Down. James Horan had to go back to Colin Boyle and to Keith, a lot of Keith Higgins, Andy Moore, and a lot of the older players. So I think that maybe Mayo, in terms of youth development, they haven't really uncovered an awful lot different this year than they had last year. So I'd say that this could be the last roll of the dice for a few of those players.
And what are the probability on that dice showing up something good? Because it certainly seems, as you mentioned, the injuries, it's going to be a big ask. Because ultimately, what is success for this team this year, for James Horan going back? Like, he's surely thinking All-Ireland when he gets back into the Mayo dressing room.
I think the only reason probably James went back was to win All-Ireland. There's no doubt about that. And I think these few yards he's been dealt now with losing a couple of players it's going to be very difficult for him. I think that if there would have been one last kick in this team, he needed everybody going really well. He needed a full, clean bill of health, and he needed those few new players to come in to provide energy and to maybe give something different. But this isn't Castlebar. The crowd will be fully behind Mayo, and if there's going to be a big performance in him, you're going to see it on Saturday night.
I don't know what's going to happen. I can't make my mind up, because you've just seen these games in the qualifiers from Mayo in the past where they don't set the tone. They're not the aggressor. They're not the one who are actually inflicting their game plan on the opposition, almost irrespective of who the opposition is. And that wasn't the hallmark of the original James Horan team. The original James Horan team were swashbuckling and aggressive and goal scoring early in games to kind of kill teams off. So, is this going to be a non-James Horan qualifier performance, or is this going to be an original James Horan special? I can't tell what's going to happen, Paddy.
I think go back to what I said there. I think the James Horan teams, like a few years ago, the teams we remember that went toe-to-toe with Dublin were when a lot of those players were at the peak of their powers. And when you could really go, when you had players of the like of, say, Keith Higgins or Colin Boyle or Donny Vaughan and Killian at that time was probably the best forward in Ireland in terms of scoring return. So Aidan O'Shea was a few years younger, and all those guys were really playing very well. I think this is just a team that's maybe gone slightly over the other side. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think time is catching up with a few players, and they maybe haven't got that capacity to go toe to toe at the start of the game and really blast the team out. I think go back and say that these losses that they've had injury-wise is going to affect them, especially in a game like this where they needed that big start. That was a traditional thing for Mayo to go out and blast the team early in the game, and if they get themselves in position, then they could see the rest of the game out. But even we found last week that you could keep in touch with Mayo right through the match, and they were susceptible to be opened up at the back, which wouldn't have been a trait of the Mayo team a number of years ago.
Is there anything you can put down to the psychology of playing down to the opposition or playing up to the opposition? Because Mayo have done that. If you take their baseline, they have played up to Dublin in recent years. Can you ever make sense of that?
Not really, no. No, I just think that I think they're a super team. I just think that really that Mayo team were, if we're back a few years ago, were one of the best teams that never won All Ireland, and the team that was able to go toe to toe with Dublin. And some of those games were the best games we've watched in years, and on a few very small things determined those results. But it's hard to keep coming back year on year and not having success, and trying to reinvent yourself. Because the one thing Dublin have been able to do is they've been able to reinvent themselves and bring in a few new players. The team that won Ireland 5 years ago. Yeah. It's unrecognisable in the teams playing today with the number of new players they have brought in. So I think if you look at the Mayo team, that wouldn't have happened. They would still be relying on a lot of the same players and really demanding very, very big performances out of those players.
Paddy, give us a prediction.
I think we could see Armagh taking Mayo at the weekend. I think Armagh have got their momentum back after the Ulster final defeat. I think they're very confident win last weekend, and I think this could be a game for them. Right,
yeah. Well, that would be a big event. All right. One last question for you. I'm interested to see what you think about the Tyrone Kildare game. the fact that it's in Newbridge probably evens it up a little bit, but you'd still make Tyrone favourites for that, and everybody is making Tyrone favourites for that. If Kildare are to win this game, what do they need to do?
Oh, this is going to be a big game for both teams. I think that Kildare have they used it really well last year. You have the Newbridge and Nowhere last year to sort of lit up the Kildare support, and I'm sure they're going to come out in their numbers on Saturday even to get behind the team as well. It's a big game for Kildare. I just think that the Tyrone, that win last week, will have got them back on the road again. Sometimes Tyrone don't spark that early in the qualifiers, but they know they're going to Kildare. It's a tight pitch. Kildare will be physical and have potential, but I just feel that Tyrone maybe have a wee bit too much up front. When it comes to these matches, Tyrone are able to create enough scoring chances, and they can be pretty clinical. So I think that I say Tyrone by 3 or 4 points in this game.
All right, fair enough, Paddy. Thanks for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Okay, lads, take care.